Welcome to Athar's Garage. In this video, I'll be unboxing the new Kyosho RB7.5 1/10 scale two-wheel drive electric buggy. So this is the box. It's considerably larger than a typical 1/10 scale buggy box. Barely fits on my work area. Nothing really on the box in terms of information. As you can see, there's a little bit of Japanese there. The only bit of information is on this side here. And it just tells you what is needed in order to run the kit. So it is sealed. It's got two pieces of tape, one over here and one down here. So let's go ahead and open it up. This came out last Friday, and I was the first one to pick it up from the local hobby shop. Thank you to Houston RC for getting a few of these. Pretty excited because I'm a huge Kyosho fan. I have some of their re-release stuff, so pretty excited to have the new RB7.5. So it's neatly packed. As you can see, the box is pretty big. Usually, it's probably about this size here and probably about, probably somewhere along this size. So considerably larger. We got the manual. Let's set this aside. A little antenna tube in there as well. So we'll open this up and take a look in a moment. But let's go ahead and get all the bags out, and then we can see what is in each bag. So that was bag 2. There's bag 1. So it looks like there's only 7 bags and the chassis. All right, so from everything that I could find online in terms of what's new in the buggy compared to the RB7, I'll try to go ahead and explain that as I'm going through the bags. But let's talk about the Lexan pieces first. It's cool to see that they included 2 wings. There's one on this side and one on this side. The wings are new. Supposedly they're redesigned. They have these supports that are molded in that are supposed to help make it a little bit more rigid and less prone to breaking. So cool to see that there's 2 wings, considering if you buy a wing itself, it's about $15. There's a new front wing. I believe that used to be an option part. Now it's included. So there's 2 front wings, and I believe there are 2 mounting solutions, one somewhat high and one somewhat low. So cool to see that as well. The body shell is also new. It's supposed to be lightweight, but it does not really feel lightweight to me. Like the Schumacher that I just had on my channel, like that was very lightweight. This seems kind of in between, not necessarily as thick as what comes in the associated kit. So this is my associated kit. It feels about the same, actually, maybe a little thicker. I have a thin body shell here that I'm about to paint. This one is definitely a lot thinner than what comes in the kit. So although they say it's lightweight, it does not feel like it's lightweight. So kind of disappointed in that. All right, so we can go ahead and talk about the bags. The first bag that we have looks like the front suspension, bulkhead, front bumper. So what's cool to see is this right here. This is a front bulkhead. This is aluminum. Typically in most cars that you get, This is not aluminum, it's usually plastic, and this is either a $25 or $40 option part. So that's cool to see that they included that in the kit. Along with that, we see the aluminum bell cranks and Ackerman bar. So the Ackerman bar or steering rack is all new. It's a little thinner than the old one, so you have more adjustment available to you. And it's cool to see that the bell cranks and the Ackerman bar are both aluminum. That's probably $50 if you were to get it for an associated a Schumacher, or maybe even like $80 for all the aluminum bits for the X-ray. So it's cool to see that that is included. There's also servo horns in here, the front ball stud mount, front bumper. So that's in bag 1. Bag 2 looks like we've got the side rails, the front, this is also new, the front carbon fiber tower. That's all new. It also comes with a shock tower protector, which is required at most carpet tracks, and I'll be running this at a carpet track, so it's cool that it's included. The side rails are also new due to the fact that there's a new battery mount system. So that's bag 2. Looks like there's also aluminum front axles. This has the C-hubs, the steering blocks, as well in this bag. And looks like we have some turnbuckles in there as well, maybe for the steering components, you can see in there. Bag 3, unfortunately, it's a ball diff. And since I'll be running this on carpet, I probably won't use the ball diff. I might use it initially once I build it, but I will probably wait for the gear diff to be released and then run the car. So I'm pretty excited about that release. I knew it was a dirt car to begin with, but they say that it can be run on carpet with a few modifications. Those modifications are going to be a gear diff, probably need some stiffer springs, and maybe some sway bars. So, but that's the ball diff. It comes with the greases that we need. I believe the balls are also new, and so are the out drives to match the rear geometry of the car. All right, so bag 4 has the transmission and rear arms. So I think this is pretty much the same transmission in the RB7. I think the suspension mounts might be slightly different. And they are aluminum, you can see them in there. And they have like a pill system, so you can set your rear toe. There's a nice gunmetal motor plate. And slipper system is also included. It'll be nice to see if there will be a slipper eliminator kit. I think I saw one for the RB7 that's out there that might work with this, since the transmission is pretty much the same. The plastic quality looks pretty good. Bag 5 is the rear shock tower. Looks like this rear shock tower is all new as well. It's made out of carbon fiber, and they have half hole adjustments. So I think there's a bit more adjustments than the previous version. It looks like the bearings in here look like they're metal shielded. So nice to see that. This is another cool, it might be hard to see in the bag, but it is the aluminum rear hubs. So that itself is probably like a $50 option part for any other brand, so it's pretty cool to see that they included that. The waterfall brace or rear brace from the transmission to the chassis is right here. That's also all new. So this is slightly different. I think there's more material on here to make the rear end a little bit more stiff or the chassis less flexible. It looks like we might have some suspension pins and some turnbuckles in here as well for the rear assembly. There's also, I think, a new aluminum rear camber link mount, which I believe is in this bag. It's kind of hard to see. It's down in there. But that allows for a good amount of adjustment for the rear camber link on the inside of the car. And I believe when I talked about the rear hubs, that is also, that whole carrier system is also new. And it looks very similar to kind of what Associated X-Ray have going on for them. So it's pretty cool to see that. Bag 6, the all new 13mm big bore shocks. Those shocks look mighty meaty, actually. They look a little larger than 13 mil. I think the wall thickness is definitely bigger than the competitors, so hopefully these will be more robust. So it's kind of cool to see that. They're threaded, of course. You've got aluminum collars. The caps are plastic, and of course new springs to accommodate the 13 mil shocks. So it's cool. So that's the second to last bag, and then the last bag is bag 7, and in here we have the carbon fiber battery mount system. So that's nice to have as well. For any brand, if it was carbon fiber, you're talking about $25 to $40 option part. So that is pretty cool to see that they included that. You know, all in all, if you think about the basic buggy kit itself, typically they're $400. You're talking about the bulkhead, the rear hubs, the steering bell cranks, the steering rack. You know, you're talking about almost $200 worth of upgrades alone if you were to go with any other brand. So cool to see that they included all that stuff. Does come with wheels. I'll have to see what offset, if the pre-mount offsets work. But I think the B6 offset is the same as the RB7 offset. So these are wide front wheels, but you can cut them down if you're going to run them on carpet and running thin tires. And then the last look, I think the chassis is roughly the same. I couldn't find any information on whether that was different or not, but it does have new side rails, and supposedly I think the anodizing is a little darker for the RB7.5. So that's it for all the part bags. Let's go ahead and open up the manual and see what's inside and kind of get an idea of what we're getting into and the quality of the manual. All right, so in the first page, we've got, it looks like supplementary instruction sheet for where we want to mount the servo. It shows that we're going to mount the servo a little further back than what was originally in the instructions. And then for the rear suspension, the ball cups are going to be the same size compared to on this side. It looked like it had a slightly larger ball cup on the outside, but it looks like it's going to be identical. So make sure to keep this. Got window masks for the body. and a nice bunch of stickers to put on your body. All right, get your warnings. Don't point your antenna towards anyone type of deal. Gives you kind of the information of what you need, the tools required, and the radio setup slightly explained. So there's a bunch of symbols that are going to be used throughout the manual. So make sure you take note of that. That way you know when to apply thread lock, when to apply grease, and so on. It's nice to see that they have the parts trees kind of labeled so you can reference that. And I believe it shows the shaded parts are not used. So you can see that when you open up the bags, if they're shaded on the parts tree, that you won't be using it. But as we went through the bags, we kind of had an idea of what we're going to assemble first. And the manual isn't that bad. They are pretty good. They get the job done, and they're pretty clear. Not as good as the X-ray manual. The X-ray manual is amazing as always, but here looks like we will be going through the steering rack assembly onto the ball stud mount, then onto the main chassis. Then we'll work on the front suspension to the bulkhead, attach that to the chassis. It's interesting that they're using a shim underneath, or shall I say above the bulkhead. That is something that Associated just started doing. I believe Schumacher has been doing that as well. So that's kind of cool to see. Then we'll go ahead and install the servo. This is quite interesting. I have no idea what that would be. Looks like something that's going to go by the motor. It says it's the battery stopper. Wonder if that's optional to use or not. We'll do the side rails, the top deck with the carbon fiber front tower. Install that onto the chassis. Then we'll move on to the front steering links, the C-hub and the steering link. Install that, and then make our turnbuckles. Install those. Then we have, they call it the differential gear, but it's the ball diff. And it tells you how to adjust. It doesn't tell you, I don't think it says how to break it in. Then we'll go ahead and install the rear suspension. The suspension arms for the rear, and then we will assemble the transmission or the gearbox. In this step here, we got some really long screws, M3x35, that we're going to apply a little bit of Loctite on, and that's going to go into the motor plate. Install the spur gear, and then the whole gearbox will attach to the chassis. Yeah, it's quite interesting because in this picture here, it doesn't show that battery stopper. That battery stopper looks like it installs very close to the motor itself. So I may or may not install that because I don't know if that's actually going to help with anything. Then we'll install the rear shock tower to the wing mount, and then install that to the gearbox. Then the rear hubs, which I am still surprised that they included aluminum hubs. You know, that's at least a $50 option part. We'll install that onto the chassis with the turnbuckles, build our shocks, install the shocks onto the chassis. And then the final bit of assembly, installing the electronics and our battery hold down system. And then we'll end up having to cut out and paint our bodies. And then it gives you an idea of you know, how to mount the body and tires and so what. There's exploded views in the back. It's kind of nice to see. And then we have our setup sheet. And then there's a spare parts list as well as optional parts. It does give a gear diff set short shaft, which I think is going to be specific to the RB7.5, part number UBW005. I'm hoping that is on their website soon. I checked in Europe, the Kyosho website in Europe and Kyosho America, and that has not been posted yet. So hopefully that comes out soon, and then we can run this on carpet. So yeah. So that's pretty much it for the unboxing. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe if you did. Let me know down in the comments if you're going to pick one up. If you have any cool stories about the RB7 or RB7.5, I'd love to hear about it. I'm super excited about this kit, so please follow along and I'll give you my experience. So far it's been great. Everything's nicely labeled. Plastic quality looks great. I'm surprised there's so many aluminum upgrades that would have probably costed, you know, close to $200, as well as some of the carbon bits that are in here. So pretty excited. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.